It says, above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. And then here's the part. As each has received a gift, so as each person has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. So a couple concepts in there. First one is that everybody has a gift that God has given you. Second one is that we're supposed to use that gift to serve one another. It's not for us, but it's for each other. And we're supposed to do it as a good steward of God's varied grace. So it's not even like our gift to claim for myself. It's something that belongs to God as part of God's grace that I'm supposed to steward, that I'm supposed to take care of, that I'm supposed to use on God's behalf to serve other people. It's a good verse to have in your memory because I think at our church we do a lot of serving. I think a lot of you guys are in leadership at Unicoi. I think a lot of you guys serve the church in other ways, maybe AV, maybe babysitting. I think it's good to remember that we're not doing it for our college resumes primarily, right? We're not doing it for recognition, but we're supposed to serve because we want to serve each other and because we want to steward what God has given us. So a good verse to have to memory. Now, there's a couple more concepts that I want to talk about today. So this is going to be more like the devotional part of our time today, like the actual teaching time. And then I'll tell us what else we're going to do today. But I want to talk about serving. Here's another concept that I want to make clear. God does not need to be served. God does not need us to do anything for him. God is ultimate. He is all-powerful. Yet he chooses to have people do his work. Right? If God really wanted to, If God really wanted to just evangelize the entire world, he could, right? He could just kind of like say it, and then people who are saved would just automatically just know. But what he does is he has us, his servants, his children, go out and spread the gospel. Like that's part of his agenda, is for us to do that. And so God does not need to be served, yet he still has us do it. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. So God does not need us. And I think that's kind of a fundamental thought that we should have when we're serving too, because once we get this like notion of like, oh, God needs me to do this, you can see how that can get kind of dangerous, right? You get into this kind of prideful territory. It's not good. So always remember, God does not need us to do anything for him. And that's from the book of Acts. Here's another concept I want to give to you. Jesus came to serve us at the cross. Mark 10:45, famous verse. For even the Son of Man did not come to serve, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus, also known as the suffering servant, right? When he came to earth, he came to serve other people. He did that by using his miraculous powers, right, of like healing people and things. But his ultimate gift, his ultimate act of service was on the cross. That affects all of humanity. That doesn't just affect the people who he was in contact with when he was on earth. But that affects those who believe. And so he came to serve us at the cross. Even the Son of Man came not to serve, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That should humble us for sure. That should humble us for sure, because you know that when we serve, we're not serving because we're like demeaned or anything like that, but serving is a position of honor and privilege that we get to use to honor others and to love others. And we take that example from Jesus, his ultimate example being his life on the cross. If you think about it, the biggest thing you can do for anybody in service is giving your life over to that person. Maybe that would be for dying for that person. Maybe that would be being married and you say, okay, I commit my life to you. It could be to your children. Okay, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to give you everything that I have. For Jesus, it was his life, and it was everything that he is, that he gives to us. That's how he serves us. Now here's another one. Serve in the strength that God supplies. 1 Peter 4:11, one of my favorite verses. Whoever speaks as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Serve in the strength that God supplies. So when you're serving using your gifts, you don't serve by saying, oh, I'm so strong, I am capable of doing this, I am the best at doing this. No, you have the mindset that says, God has gifted me in a certain way, and I want to draw upon his strength in order to serve other people. When you start tapping into like your own strength and things, right, that could become prideful too. That can become dangerous. You're thinking that like, oh, I'm the one that's doing it. When in reality, it's God who has given you the gift. It's God who empowers you to serve. And so as I'm up here speaking, right, I pray, I ask God, I pray that you will help me to speak clearly. I pray that I can communicate your truth. And then you trust that God will do that. And then you act in faith. You go and commit to serving however you're going to serve. That's how you serve in God's strength. You kind of commit it to him, and then you let it be an outflowing of your work. And you try to stay humble through it too. And the reason, again, like I said, is so your pride will be low. Look, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. So hopefully, as I speak, as I preach, when other people preach and teach, when other people do some sort of service, whether that's giving a lot of money or whether that's doing something medically important to somebody, you're not like, oh, that person's so great, they're so awesome, but you say, oh man, that's good thing that they did, but ultimately that's God doing the good work. Amen. One more for you, okay? One more. Oh no, that was the last one. So 3, okay? Now I want to give you very practical tips. I will go through these very fast, okay? This is like the application part of this whole devotion, okay? 10 tips for serving. So we went over our... You okay? You guys okay? We went over our spiritual gifts, and now I want you to think, how can I use those spiritual gifts in church? Is there a way for me to serve at church? And I think that for a lot of you, you put that you're in leadership, right? And I think that's like a place where you're able to serve, maybe, because that's the opportunity. But I think as you grow older and as you go to college, you'll find that, there's actually a lot of different areas that you can serve in. So let me just run through these kind of tips for you, okay? Keep your interests in mind. So what are you interested in? What do you like to do? I think that God gives us certain interests in order to kind of develop us there. Amen. And so think about what do you like to do and see if there's an area that you can serve God in. For me, that was definitely music. I was very interested in music, and I kind of just pursued that. And I think that God used that interest to finally say, okay, if you're interested in that, how about you look at worship music and see how you can use music to serve the church. Play into your strengths. So if you know you're good at something, if you know you're good at math, if you know you're good at science, where in the church can you apply those gifts? Yes, maybe you do that stuff for school and you just see that as like a school thing, but is there somewhere in church where you can use that? Maybe that means you're good at math, and so you can do like accounting stuff or like monitoring the offering for church. I don't know, okay, just like examples. You find places to serve. If you're good in the medical field, maybe you can go on medical missions. Maybe you can be a camp nurse. Okay, so there's like a bunch of areas where you can serve. Even just being around church, and if somebody gets hurt, you can go and just be on call to help if needed. A lot of different things. Next, go where you're affirmed. So affirmation means that somebody tells you, hey, you're good at this. You should keep doing this. So if you're good at speaking, right, maybe you do the speakers competition tournament, and if you're good at it and people say, hey, that was really good, I was really blessed like that. Okay, you don't have to be the best, but if people just say, hey, you're good at that, maybe you can see that, hey, God has gifted me in this area and people are affirming in this. Where can I go and exercise that gift elsewhere? Maybe that means doing a devotion in your small groups. Maybe that means eventually becoming a Sunday school teacher or a preacher. So go where you're affirmed. Next, look where there is a need. Now, I'm very thankful for anybody who serves in, not childcare, but watching the little kids, because that is definitely a need, okay? You don't understand how needed that is. It's a need. And so you go where there's a need. There will always be a need to look after the children, always. And so if there's a need, just go and serve. And even for those things, right, you don't necessarily need to be have a degree in child psychology or anything. You just go and make yourself available. That principle applies to any area of service, whether that's setting up tables or picking up trash, right? I think Kevin makes a big deal about, hey, let's keep this place nice. Let's keep it inviting for visitors to come. So you want to go where there's a need. And you should always have that mindset of hey, I'm not above anything, right? I'm not so good at something where I don't need to serve somewhere else. No, if there's a need, that's the need that you need to go attend to. Look out for a need. Next, try new things. So I know we're harping on gifts and what you're good at, but sometimes you won't know what you're good at unless you try it. Okay? And so you want to be open. You want to be able to say, hey, you know what? I don't really know anything about this, but I'm open to it. If there's a need, I'll go try it out maybe. So being open is another way where you can discover your gifts too, and also find the needs that are in the church. Try new things. Next, consider a trial period. Okay, so sometimes if you're trying new things and if you're going where there's a need, you don't have to necessarily say, okay, I'm going to do that forever. That's my place of serving. But you can say, hey, I'm going to try this for a little while, and maybe I'll get affirmed in that. And then that will confirm that I can keep doing this. But, if you don't get affirmed, you can set a trial period of a month or 3 months or half a year or something, or even a whole year to see what you're good at and if people will affirm you. Consider a trial period. Next. Okay, so now these next ones over here are more like kind of warnings or cautions, okay? You don't want to serve to be seen. Okay, so being seen, meaning you don't want to serve so that people will recognize you and be like, oh man, that's such a good thing to do. I want that thing, okay? That would be mostly for the serving things that you see on stage. But you could also have bad motives for serving too, right? You could be oh, I'm going to pick up the trash so people will see how holy I am. You don't do that. You should still pick up the trash though. What you should do is you should say, oh, God forgive me for doing this because I want to be seen, and then you just do it anyways. Okay, so don't serve to be seen. Next, don't serve for prestige. And prestige, kind of the same with this, but prestige meaning more the positions of authority, so you can have more clout, So you don't want to serve because you want to climb up the church ladder. I think that's prideful. I think there's a story where there are these two brothers, and they're like, oh, Jesus, can I sit at your right hand? This position of power and authority. I think there's examples of the Pharisees, and Jesus was like, hey, don't be like the Pharisees who want to be recognized, right? Maybe they say these super long prayers, or maybe the Pharisees, they go to the places of prominence in the synagogue. You don't want to do that, okay? Jesus says, don't serve just because you want to be noticed or powerful. Next, don't serve to meet someone. Okay, so I know that sometimes we'll serve because, hey, that person's serving in that area. I want to go there to hang out with that person. Not the best motive. Okay, so if you find yourself doing that, I'm not saying don't do it, but what I'm saying is, you should probably confess that to God so you clear your mind and your heart. Serving shouldn't be for some sort of ulterior motive or for some sort of shady reason, but it should be because of God and to love others genuinely, authentically. And then finally, don't serve because you feel forced. So right now, I'm giving this whole spiel about oh, you gotta serve, right? I think there's seasons. I think there's times where you can really be hardcore and do a lot for God, And then I think there's other times where you need to rest and take a break. And so I don't think that God will ever like make you serve and make you have this attitude where I have to do it because God's forcing me to do it. No, I think that God wants us to serve him joyfully, right? You think about Jesus. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, right? And so in the same way, serving, it takes sacrifice, right? It takes commitment, it takes time. But if you're feeling that I hate this, I got to serve, that's not the right attitude. You want to be like Jesus, who joyfully submitted to God, who said, God, this cup is heavy for me, but I want to do it because I love you, I love others, and I do it thankfully and with joy. Okay, so those are some tips for serving, just really quick. I do pray that you will find your gift and exercise your gift. And I think that also gifts change over time too, right? This whole thing about trial period, there's different seasons. And so definitely grow and learn what you're good at and see how God will use you. I'm excited to see how God will use you as you grow up in our church and as you go out into the world using your gifts to serve God. 10 tips for serving. I want to go back to this verse, okay? And maybe I missed this earlier. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling, as each has received a gift. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. And so this whole thing about serving, it kind of falls under the umbrella of above all, right? Keep loving one another earnestly. So don't lose sight of that fact that when we serve with our hands, we're serving from our heart because we want to share God's love with other people. Okay, that's really the gist of it. Serve because you love God and because you love others. And this would be like the main point, the big idea, the central truth of the entire devotion that I just gave you. Use your gifts to serve one another in love. Use your gifts to serve one another in love.